Hey, welcome to Zero State. Today, we are diving into one of the biggest, most common points of confusion in all of tech, Docker versus Kubernetes. Now, everyone frames this as some kind of epic showdown, but you're about to find out that's not the real story. Not at all.
So let's just get it out of the way. Docker versus Kubernetes. Who's the winner? I mean, that's the question everybody asks. But here's the thing. It's completely the wrong question. And in this explainer, we're going to flip this whole debate on its head and show you why thinking of this as a fight is the biggest mistake you can make.
All right, to really get this, we've got to rewind the clock a little bit. You see, before you can understand Docker and Kubernetes, you have to understand the nightmare they were created to solve. And for years, that whole nightmare could be summed up in 5 little words that every single developer on the planet has either said or heard, but it works on my machine.
And this right here, this is that universal frustration. You'd have an app that runs perfectly on your laptop, but the second you move it to a test server, or even worse, to the production server where customers can see it, boom, everything just falls apart. And why? Well, it could be anything. Mismatched libraries, different OS versions, some other piece of software causing a conflict. It was just total chaos, and it means shipping software an absolute pain. And then, into all that chaos, came our first hero, Docker. You can think of it as this incredibly elegant solution that finally put an end to the works on my machine problem by inventing a kind of magic box. So what is Docker, really? At its heart, it's a platform that lets you package up your applications into these standardized, totally self-contained little units called containers. The two most important words here are lightweight and portable. And trust me, this was a complete game changer. Docker's core idea was so simple, it was genius. It was basically, hey, instead of just shipping the code around and hoping for the best, what if we packaged up everything the code needs to run? That means your code, the runtime like Python or Java, all the system tools, every single library, the whole shebang gets bundled together. Honestly, this is the best way to picture it. A Docker container is like a sealed capsule. And because everything it needs is already packed inside, it doesn't care if you're running it on your MacBook, a Linux server, or in the cloud. The environment inside that capsule is always the same. It just works, everywhere. Okay, but this is where our story takes a pretty interesting turn. Docker was so good, so successful, that it actually created a brand new problem. Now, it was a good problem to have for sure, but still a huge challenge, the container explosion. And wow, did it explode. It happened so fast. Today, a mind-blowing 90% of organizations are using containers in production. We went from having, a few containers on a developer's laptop to suddenly having thousands, sometimes tens of thousands, running the most important applications in the world. Which, of course, leads to the next big question. This is great. We have all these amazing, portable, super reliable capsules, but how on earth do you manage all of them? How do you coordinate thousands of these things, make sure they're all healthy, and get them to talk to each other when they're running all at once? And that, right there, is where our second hero makes its entrance. If Docker is the tool that creates all the magic boxes, Kubernetes is the master conductor for the entire orchestra. So here's the absolute key distinction you have to get. Kubernetes is an orchestration platform. Its job is not to build the containers. That's Docker's job. Kubernetes' job is to manage huge fleets of them. It's the automation brain that does all the hard stuff involved in running containers in a real, large-scale environment. And it does this with some pretty incredible superpowers. Let's say traffic to your website suddenly spikes. Well, Kubernetes just auto-scales and adds more containers to handle the load. What if a container crashes? Kubernetes self-heals by instantly replacing it. It handles all the complex networking, manages storage, and lets you do things like update your application with literally zero downtime for your users. It's the brain of the whole operation.
So, now we can finally see the real picture. And it's so clear. This was never, ever a fight. It has always, from the beginning, been about a partnership. Each tool solves a different but deeply connected problem.
If you only remember one thing from this whole explainer, make it this slide right here. Docker is the standardized shipping container. It's the universal box that holds the goods. Kubernetes, that's the massive port, the cargo ships, the cranes, the entire global logistics system that manages where all those containers go and makes sure they get delivered safely and on time. You absolutely need both.
So you might be wondering, okay, if they're partners, where did all the versus talk even come from? Well, It's a little bit of a tech history lesson. In the very early days, Kubernetes was built to work only with Docker's engine. But later, Kubernetes wanted to support lots of different container systems, so they created a standard interface. To make the old Docker engine work with this new standard, they had to build this temporary bridge, this little piece of code called a Docker shim. And then a few years ago, that temporary bridge was finally removed.
And you can imagine this sent people into a panic. The headlines were all Kubernetes drops Docker, but that was never actually what happened. And here's the crucial point. Kubernetes just removed a small, temporary piece of code. It absolutely still runs the container images, the capsules themselves that you build with Docker. In fact, that is still the most common way people use it today.
So, with all of that confusion finally cleared up, let's talk about what this looks like in the real world. What is the modern toolkit for a developer today?
Well, the workflow is beautiful. Use Docker on your own machine. It's simple, it's focused, and you use it to build, test, and package your app into that perfect portable container image. Then, when you're ready for the big leagues, for production, you hand that image over to Kubernetes, and you let Kubernetes handle all the complexity of running it at massive scale, making sure it's always on and always reliable. All right, let's bring it all home. Here's the bottom line. Docker packages your application. It creates the what. Kubernetes runs and manages those packages at scale. It provides the how. They are not competitors. They are partners in one of the most powerful tandems in modern technology. It's simple. You use Docker to build, and you use Kubernetes to orchestrate. Together, this partnership has completely revolutionized how we build and deploy software. It's made things possible that we could only dream of a decade ago. So the only real question left is, now that you know how these incredible tools work together, what are you going to build with them?